Devil worship in France. The question of Lucifer. According to the evidence of the initiates, we're going to continue with Satanism in the 19th century. It is a matter of notoriety that in 1894, to Ciboria, containing 100 consecrated hosts, were carried off by an old woman from the Cathedral of Notre Dame under circumstances which indicate that the vessels were not the objects of the larceny. Similar depredations are said to have increased in extraordinary manner during recent years and have occurred in all parts of France. No less than 13 churches belonging to one diocese of Orleans were despoiled in the space of 12 months, and in the diocese of Lyons, the archbishop recommended his clergy to transform the tabernacles into strong boxes. The departments of Aude, Isère, Tarn, Gard, Nièvre, Loiret, Yonne, Hâte, Garonne, Somme, the Nord, and Dauphiny. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. I may remember when I'm not so tired. Have been in turn the scene of outrage, nor the abominations in question confined to France, Rome, Liguria, Salerno, have also suffered, while so far off as the island of Mauritius. A peculiarity revolting instance occurred in 1895. I am not able to say that the personal researches of the French novelists have proceeded beyond the statistics of sacrilege, which, however, he has collected carefully, and these in themselves constitute a strong presumption. M. Huysmans is exhaustive in fiction and reticent in essay writing, yet he gives us to understand explicitly that the infamous canon doctrine of Labas is actually living in Belgium, and that he is the leader of a demoniac clan, and that, like the Count de Saint-Germain, is in frequent terror of the possibilities of the life to come. An interviewer has represented M. Huysmans as stating that his information was derived from a person who was himself a Satanist, but the revelations disturbed the sect, and the communication ceased, though the author had originally been welcomed as one of their own. But it is clear to my own mind that for his descriptions of the orgies which take place at the assemblies of modern black magicians, M. Huysmans is mainly indebted to documents which have been placed in his hands by existing disciples of the illumined Eugene Vintras and the Dr. Johannes of Labas. Vintras was the founder of a singular thaumaturgic sect, incorporating the aspirations of the saviors of Louis XVII. He obtained some notoriety about the year 1860, and an account of his claims and miracles will be found in Eliphas Levi's Historia de la Magique. Histoire de la Magie, and the same writers, Clef des Grands Mystères and and jewels, voices, petites, religions, de Paris. Oh, de Paris. Okay, I should stop saying Paris. It's Paris. Okay. He left a number of manuscripts behind him, recounting his lifelong combats with the priests of black magic, a series of fervid narratives which savors strongly of hallucination, but highly picturesque, and in some quarters accepted quite seriously. In like manner, concerning the existence of satanic associations, and especially the Palladium, M. Huysmans admittedly derives his knowledge from published sources. We take it, therefore, that he speaks from accidental and extrinsic acquaintance, and he is therefore insufficient in himself to create a question of Satanism. He indicates, rather than establishes, that there is a question, and to learn its scope and nature, we must have recourse to the witnesses who claim to have seen for themselves. These are of two kinds, namely, the spy and the seducer. The witness who claims to have instigated the subject at first hand with a view to its exposure, and those who have come forward to say they once were worshippers of Lucifer, worshippers of Satan, operators of black magic, or were at the least connected with associations which exist for these purposes, who have now, however, suspended communication and are stating what they know. In the first class, we find only Dr. Bataille. In the second, Diana Vaughan, Jean Kostka, Domenico Margiotta, and Leo Taxil. Finally, we have, as stated in the preface, some testimony from writers representing the interest of the Latin Church in a special manner and speaking with the authority of that church. The most important of these is the late Archbishop Murin. At the same time, M. Huysmans, a part who occupies much the same quasi-religious position as that which attached a fleeting interest to the personality of Mr. W. H. Mallock. All writers and all witnesses are assumed to be, at the present time, convinced and zealous Roman Catholics. I've already stated that the purpose of black magic is simply and obviously to communicate with devils, and if we interrogate our sources of knowledge as to the object of such communication, it must be admitted that the response is vague. Come on, it's worship. Whatever you call it, it's worship. You're performing rituals and prayers and whatnot. If you did this to a so-called so-called orthodox religion idea of God, it wouldn't be considered demonism. It would be considered worship. So, but it's demons, so it's not really worship. It's like calling your buddy on the phone. It's not. Perhaps the object will be best defined as the reinforcement of human ability by diabolical power and intelligence for the operation of evil along the lines of individual desire and ambition. For the fulfillment of what is good, man aspires towards God, and to fulfill evil he attempts to conspire with Satan. I think most people are in between. It must, however, be observed that modern devil worship, as exposed by its French experts has two aspects corresponding to the distinction already laid down in my preface. There is devil worship, pure and simple, being an attempt to communicate with evil spirits, admitting that they are evil. The cultists of Lucifer, star of the morning, as distinguished from Satan, on the hypothesis that he is a good spirit, it will be seen very readily that the existence of diabolism is wanting in the second division, namely the satanic intention, so that it belongs really to another category. Though the classification may be accepted for the moment, the previous dispute at the beginning of a somewhat complex inquiry. And as I have said before, the Easter Vigil and the biblical verses that list Jesus as Lucifer, well, the Bible lists other individuals as such. There are other messiahs in the Bible, as much as the Christians protest. Cyrus, a non-Israelite, was a messiah. Cyrus the Great, Kurash, as he's called. So the idea of other Lucifers, and a Lucifer that's maybe not God, it's really evil to some people's minds. But the first division is, in any case, Satanism proper, and its adepts are termed Satanist. Those of the second division are, on the other hand, called Luciferians. Palladist. A lot of Luciferians do not worship the devil. They don't consider Lucifer as a god. They consider Lucifer as a hero to follow, but not to worship. Luciferianism is really about finding your own light, finding your own conclusions, but we understand where the two orders are further distinguished as unorganized and as organized diabolism. The cultus of Satan is supposed to be mainly practiced by isolated persons or small and obscure groups, and that of Lucifer is centralized and at least one great and widespread institution. In other words, the first is rare and sporadic. The second one is a prevalent practice. We accordingly hear little of the one, while testimonies which have been collected are concerned exclusively with the other. It is possible, in fact, to dismiss Satanism of the primary division in a few words, because materials are wanting for its history. It is founded on Orthodox Christianity. It acknowledges that the devil is a lost angel, a jinn, a different type of creation altogether, like the word Lucifer implies, not the real God. But, of course, Satan is, said, well, I can rebel. I don't have to obey like these other things, so I'm not going to obey. But it affirms that the God of the Christians has deceived his believers, has betrayed the cause of humanity, has exacted the suppression of the nature with which he himself has endowed it, that they have therefore abandoned a cruel and tyrannical master, and have gone over in despair to his enemy. Satanism, Iblis connects to the word of being in despair. Satanism of the second division, its principles and its origin will be described in the second chapter. And see, whether it's Luciferianism or Christianity, just presume. Now, as time goes on, this presumption of that it's just a response to Christianity. Christianity certainly produces most of what people would call Satanism, but more and more people are realizing that the so-called gods and goddesses of old are shayateen min al-jinn, and in becoming a living demon themselves, wanting to be as the god of their own worlds, which is not necessary for Luciferianism, but wanting to be in charge of their own spirituality, taking responsibility for themselves, accepting time and nature and whatever rules it, the laws of nature, and so many other things are giving people reasons to maybe be something else. But as a Luciferianism, as a true Luciferianism is, as has been pointed out in that huge playlist of mine, is about having your own experience, coming to your own conclusions. That doesn't mean you can't pick up a book and say, maybe this was revealed and unadulterated, and maybe the translation and comments are right. But it's something you've personally come to these conclusions. You looked at science, you've had the spiritual experience to back up some claims, not necessarily everything that's part of the conservative tradition, but you come to your own conclusions. You are your own school of thought. You don't just, some conclusions are, so I'm going to follow the rest of the interpretations. Philosophy is seen as a method for the Luciferian, not, let's quote philosophers like we're quoting the Bible. No. And maybe when you accept something, you're looking at stuff and you're saying, maybe these are formulas. Maybe they're not maybe, parts of the Bible aren't literally true. Maybe they're figuratively true in some way. Are there some other use?